I'll go ahead and get started. But yes, thank you all for joining me today for this evening campfire session for the East Coast at least, but maybe some of you all are joining from various parts of the world and it's a different time right now. But yeah, today's topic is writing feedback in Flint. And I'll go ahead and start off with some icebreaking news as always. For those of you who are new here, I usually just show some news articles or some opinion pieces, kind of just to start the discussion on the topic that we're covering. And then for the rest of today, I'll share some examples of activities that can be helpful for writing feedback. In there, I'll also include some tips for how to craft the types of activities that have, from what I've seen, been very effective with helping students in getting that immediate feedback on writing. And then after that, we'll talk about some specific features in Flint that are helpful for assisting students with writing. And then finally, I'll leave some time for a share out and for everyone to provide some feedback. So if you've used writing or writing activities in your practice, please feel free to share how it's gone for you at the end there. And yeah, I have a couple other teachers that I've kind of singled out to do the same. Cool. Awesome. And a couple housekeeping things. As always, the recording will be available later. If you're already on this call, rest assured you'll get the recording in your inbox once it's posted. And questions are welcome at any time. Feel free to just like raise your hand, interrupt me, throw it in the chat. I'll try to monitor all of those different places as we do this. Yeah. So to start off with the icebreaking news for today, I actually saw this Medium article by an English teacher, David Cutler, and he titled it "ChatGPT 5 just changed my mind. Generative AI has no place in my classroom." And I think he brought up a lot of very valid concerns. And so I just wanted to kind of speak to them at the beginning here and kind of talk about, I think some teachers are like very concerned for good reasons. Some teachers are still like trying to power through, figure out how to use AI for writing. And I think the way that he has like kind of written about it was very eloquent and a good summary of what I think I've seen. But yeah, so I pulled out a couple of excerpts there, but he said that, he used to start off his class with some smaller in-class assignments. Then he could get kind of a feel of the students' writing voices. And then, yeah, what ChatGPT 5 created for him was a worry now because it could easily produce things that actually sounded like the student. So at the end of his writing there, which I can share with you all here if you all want to skim through it while we're talking about it. He shared like, right now in his high school history classes, the writing is happening in class or down platform. And I think what has really stood out to me from what he wrote there is that process will matter as much as the product. And so I think his approach can work if teachers are worried about writing and the use of AI in writing. Of course, you can, make it so that students only write in person. But what we're trying to enable at Flint, at least, is insight into that student process, and through like being able to monitor the conversations of students and like encouraging students to use Flint where everything is like stored in the same platform for you all as teachers to see. That process that we're trying to highlight will be much more visible to you all. Yes, so I know I just like said a lot of words. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this specific topic or any like reflections from your own kind of grappling with how to teach writing alongside this AI boom? If not, all good. But yeah, feel free to just unmute and share your thoughts if you have any. And I'll like get the next section prepped. Yeah, Margaret is saying it's definitely a hot topic about how much we can bring it in for personal essay writing classes. Yeah, agreed. I think also at like different grade levels, it will probably vary a lot. I've been seeing actually a lot of lower school teachers lean into using AI for writing because there's typically so much more hand holding at the lower school. So AI can kind of help with a lot of that and make it so you don't have like a long line of kids waiting to see you. But then yeah, maybe like at older ages when like students are trying to write more, I guess, involved pieces, maybe AI is something to like kind of teach with a grain of salt to them. But either way, like I think, yeah, last week we did a session on critical thinking and AI. So I think overall, like how do we make sure that students are actually critically evaluating what AI puts out, and also how to make it so that activities are or like writing pieces that you assign are actually challenging them and encouraging them to like put their own thoughts in is very important. But yeah, okay, I'll go ahead and move on to the next section here, um, where I'll show an example of how to create an activity and also speak to some tips for creating writing feedback activities. So firstly, I created this checklist of what you can input into various writing activities. Oh yeah, before I start, Nathan, did you have something to share?
Sorry, I didn't jump in fast enough, but I was just skimming through that article that you just, and I'm curious. I like this one spot where it says what it offers in efficiency, it erodes in depth, and I think that's something I feel like there's so much conversation on both sides of that, and the writer really kind of assumes that um, that the depth of writing is going to be somehow kind of bypassed by the use of AI. And I wonder about those teachers who maybe are actually pivoting some of the competencies that they're leaning into and really rethinking. I'm sure some of them even here, really rethinking uh, the way that we're teaching writing, and the way that we can kind of really deepen thinking through integrating AI into that process, and whether you're finding that what he's saying there is actually, or he or she, this writer is true, or whether you're finding that that actually the opposite is true.
Mm, yeah, that's a good point. I feel like the process of writing, before was like so actually focused on the words that you put on the page, but maybe it just means like bringing AI into the classroom involves a lot more conversation, a lot more reflection, a lot more prep.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I,
don't have the answer, unfortunately, but
yeah, I just think that I just think it's interesting that he's talking about how through that writing process that it's partly also about the time that a student, that just like getting to the answer too quickly, or like not spending enough time really ruminating on the ideas. And I wonder if that's more just a training piece around like how to be thoughtful and deliberate about the way that a student is using AI to help them reflect,
Mhm.
as opposed to just jumping from like task to task. And it really does speak to process also. Like we're just being very deliberate about like what are the competencies that we want students to be learning through the writing process, and how can we really bake those in and actually emphasize those pieces, maybe to, because he's talking about the patience of kind of like going through the frustrating process of like finding words and things like that, which, okay, but then
Mhm.
is that he kind of highlights that the new insight that's mid draft comes during that process, and that maybe that part of that is just taking the time to really be able to lean in to allowing the student to kind of think through things carefully enough,
Mhm.
um, and less about whether you're using AI or not. It's more just about like a function of like, are you not taking enough time to be able to kind of really dig in? to the topic, and just allowing students to do that with AI or without AI.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, whether like depending on how you use it, I feel like it can create a lot like actual thinking about the writing itself, like the metacognitive side of things. But even if you like just tell students like, hey, I want you to write this in person on paper, like if the student's not actually practicing the thinking process with or without AI, like the I guess depth of the writing is still not going to be achieved. It's not necessarily like the writing through paper that is helping with the depth aspect. Yeah. Yeah, and Chris is adding in the chat that it's also interesting that the headline says that this person changed his mind. Was he in favor of AI usage before? Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe that's something we can like dig into his Medium writing from before. But I think he was essentially saying like, he had this process in place where he could like understand students' voice and their writing styles. But now he's like scared because AI is too good at copying their voice, which I think is not necessarily like a reason to just full stop it. But I do think it is a valid concern. But yeah, thank you all for the
Yeah,
great conversation.
I mean, definitely his last sentence, I think, is maybe the key concern, is, that we don't want to be giving up intellectual independence, and that students are just trusting algorithms over their own judgment. I mean, I think that piece there, for me, I feel like that's where we can really lean into a really meaningful process that ensures that students are still engaging in that process, but they're just doing it with a new tool and in a different way.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Awesome. Yeah, loving this conversation. We can probably maybe continue it at the end a little bit, but I'll just go ahead and continue with the content so that we can get to the share outs. But yeah, thank you, Nathan. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts. Yes, so right, I created this checklist of things to kind of include in your prompting to Flint. Going through the conversation and setting up the activities. I'll like demonstrate these in a second, but really from my experience, teachers who are trying to use Flint for writing often struggle with a couple things. Either Flint is being too helpful, or Flint is like responding to them at a level that doesn't match their students' level, or it's not giving feedback quite in the way that the teacher wants. Those are like the three most common complaints that I hear. And I think a couple of things here that I've listed, like telling Sparky a role that it should follow, like, hey, I want you to be a writing coach, or I want you to be like an editor, or I want you to be a tutor. That can help a lot with the, having Sparky follow the rules that you set portion. And then make sure you tell it your student's age and proficiency. Definitely sometimes you might need to like bring it even further down. Because AI in general tends to go towards the more complex side. It's trained on all of these like college level papers and stuff. So sometimes you have to like really beat it down to the basics to make sure that it's at a suitable level for your students. And then, yeah, I think uploading rubrics, even student examples can really help to showcase how you would give feedback. Yeah, and that's like something that can help a lot in your setup as well. But yeah, I'll go ahead and jump into the platform and show you all how this looks in case anyone hasn't seen Flint yet. Yeah, but within Flint, we have the chats at the top here, which is kind of like you're using Flint for your own purposes. But in the create an activity section, this is where you can create the custom activities that give students feedback in a specific way or on a specific topic. Yeah, we have the give them writing feedback shortcut here, which starts off the conversation for you, but you can also always create a custom activity. So I'm going to go with the give them writing feedback. And the great thing here is that Flint will start to just go ahead and create something that you can test out. And it'll also ask you any additional questions about what the setup requires so that you can set up a really good activity for your students. I'm going to go ahead and paste in this prompt that I wrote earlier. Yeah, so I'm asking it to act as a writing coach for students. Students are in 5th grade and reading below level, as some of them are English as a second language students. And then they will share their first drafts of a 1-page article where they're practicing using different literary devices. I want you to give them feedback about the devices that they have used and suggest through Socratic questioning an additional 2 devices they could add. So there's like a lot here, but if you kind of look back at the checklist that I tried to succinctly write, so I told Sparky to act as a writing coach. So that's the role there. Telling it that, the students are in 5th grade, but reading a bit below level, just out of circumstance of who they are. And then giving it the context about what the actual assignment is, and then also suggesting to give them feedback in a specific way, where here I'm saying like, I want you to suggest an additional 2 through Socratic questioning, and then mostly focus on giving feedback about the devices that they have used, so that it's specific enough where it's not going to go down rabbit holes of like necessarily like spelling or grammar or anything like that. But of course, you can also incorporate that as something that you wanted to review with students. But yeah, I will send that to Flint and see what it says from there. And okay, so yeah, it's going to go ahead and update this specifically for my 5th grade EAL students working on literary devices. And the great thing is, of course, it's writing all of the actual prompts for me. And using the build with Sparky here is really helpful because it will help to optimize the actual prompt wording that is in the manual settings for you. Yeah, and then so here it says that it has updated to use grade appropriate language, have a literary device focus, use a Socratic approach, confidence building, they're celebrating what they've done well, and also using an EAL friendly rubric. But I'm actually going to attach my own rubric. This is something that I heavily recommend for any writing feedback activities. So let me just add that here. Oh, actually, I already have it in here, so we'll just add this from there. And this is actually a rubric that I created using Flint, funnily enough, through one of the chats. But yeah, if you have any rubrics that you already have made or ones that really reflect how you as a teacher like to give feedback and the things that you focus on, providing that to Sparky is always very helpful. Cool. So yeah, it's updated the grading rubric. Yeah, it's also going to use like, the same grading point system. The rubric also, if I can open it for you all. Oh, maybe no. Well, the rubric also specified like which literary devices were covered in class and had some additional steps in the end for students to self-evaluate. So it looks like it's incorporating all of that automatically as well. So very easy to update in that way. But yeah, I can of course, continue giving it feedback here, but I usually suggest to teachers to try it out also. So we have 2 options here. You can either simulate the session or you can try out the session manually. From what I've heard, actually, teachers really like trying it manually because they understand their students a lot better and they can actually pretend to be their student and more accurately get a depiction of how the activity might play out. But of course, if you're just wanting to review it really quickly, you can use the simulation to get an automatic playthrough of what this activity might look like for students. There we go. Yeah, so here it's kind of checking with students, and then it's asking them some questions. And I guess the first thing that I'm noticing here is that Flint's responses are super long. So I can give it any feedback, like ask one question or give one piece of feedback at a time, keep your responses concise so you don't overwhelm the young student. Yeah, and that's kind of how the process usually looks like. Kind of some building in the chat, and then previewing it on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, and then adding additional feedback as you test it out. Any questions on the actual process of building an activity? I see. Gary is asking, is there a specific list of rules that Sparky has been trained to expect regarding writing rules? There is not. I do think Sparky's pretty, just because of like the breadth of knowledge that it has, it's pretty good at understanding what like common rules that you would mention are. Maybe if you said like, act like our guidance counselor at our school, it might not know that, but if you said like, act as a guidance counselor to help students with their college essays, then it generally knows like best practices there. But I think if there's any like specific rules that you want to train it on, if you have any like websites or documents or even just like a list of like qualities that you want to upload into Flint, you can definitely do that and then have Sparky learn from that. Yeah. Donovan is saying, I'm very new to Flint. Is the listen option available for the students? Can they access in another language? Yes and yes. So with the listen option, I think sometimes it enables it by default, sometimes it doesn't. It kind of just depends. I think this one doesn't have it, so you can see here, but you can always just tell Sparky to add that. So I'm actually just going to say this aloud to it, but I'm just going to say, allow students to listen to your responses and also allow them to speak their own responses. So that way, I think this is especially common with like lower school use cases where students can then like listen to whatever Flint is saying and then they can also speak back to it. And it just makes for a more seamless like conversation where the students don't have to like struggle with typing if they're not quite at that level yet.
Yeah, also my question related to maybe they can't read it, so then they can at least access it. You talked earlier about EAL, and it's really important. A couple of students, I'm just thinking of a grade 3 class I was in the other day visiting, and we had a student who just come from Sweden, another one from China, another from Japan, first language. Like, how can they access the content? So, as I said, new, very, very new to Flint. So I think these accessibility features are essential.
Yeah. You could even tell Sparky like, hey, we have like some of my students just came from China, Japan, Sweden. Allow them to interact with you in their mother tongues as well. And then the students should be able to speak with Sparky in another language, and Sparky should be able to like respond kind of in that language as well. Sparky speaks over 200 different dialects. So yeah, there's like no restriction there. Just be like whether or not you want them to be speaking in their like more comfortable languages in class or not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yes, and then Anne said to comment on the work you clicked manually. Yes. What if you click simulate? Can you explain how it is different? Oh, so I actually clicked simulate here. Simulate like automatically. Yeah, I click simulate and I click manually, but simulate will play an example conversation for you. So it'll go through and pretend to both be, it's Sparky and the student. And then you can just get like a quick transcript to read through to see like what the interaction looks like. Manually is where you can then like add your own responses and like pretend to be the student or pretend to like, or try and like break it or try and get it to give you the answer and see how to test those boundaries so you can like manually enter your own responses there. Yeah. And then Louise is asking, how do students upload their writing? Can they upload a file or do they have to write their stories to Flint? Yeah, so I think I have this in the future section later, but happy to cover it now. I've seen a bunch of different ways that students put in their writing. Of course, you just like type it in the box here, but also if they click the plus icon, they can actually add a document, and then in here they can type anything. And I'll show you also how like this document has additional features in there, but that's like one way. Kind of works like a built-in Google Docs or Word doc almost. But they can also attach their writing. So they can attach from like their current device, or they can import from Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. Yeah. Oh, and then the third thing is just recently I saw an example, which I'll play a video of later also, of a teacher having students read their writing to Flint. And that way they could like practice the writing on paper, but then also easily put it into Flint in a way that Flint like understands and can give them suggestions. And yeah, they could send a picture of the writing. I do think that the picture is a bit more of a gray zone of how well it can interpret the student's writing. Just how like humans struggle with reading students' writing sometimes. Flint also struggles maybe a bit more than the average teacher. So like it would be best if like their handwriting is clear, the picture is clear, and then also if they're not trying to like take a picture of too much writing at once. So I think if you take like a picture of a paragraph, that should work. But if you have like a super long, like 5-paragraph, really small handwriting picture, it might not work as well, if that makes sense. Great, cool. Very good questions, everyone. Thank you for asking those. Yeah, feel free to keep them coming. I'll just like continue a little bit with this demo, but yeah, once you're happy with the activity, you can just click create. And then from here, it's super easy to share with your students. You can just copy the link and send it to them. As long as their emails have been invited to the workspace, they should be able to access this link. Of course, you can also move it into like one of your class groups if you have those set up as well. Yeah. Okay. And then Chris is asking if it's a short piece of writing, they could perhaps do it on the whiteboard. This is true. Yeah. I do think the document might be easier than the whiteboard, but if they want to like draw a diagram and have writing, then the whiteboard would be a good option. So again, I just like click the plus under document. There's a whiteboard.
I'm your writing coach, and I'm excited.
Sorry. The autoplay was on. Under document, there's a whiteboarding option, and then here you can add any text, and then also put in any drawings and stuff as well. I don't know what that is, but yeah. Great. Cool. Okay. So coming back to the slides, just as a kind of catch-all, I wanted to talk about the different types of activities that could be made. So these are some of the ones that I've seen before, either like, reading comprehension and analysis. So like that very first step before they're even like starting to form their own ideas about what they're writing yet. Maybe there's help that Flint can provide in actually analyzing things that they might want to incorporate in their writing. It can help with the research also. Flint has access to the internet, it can cite sources, and it can really help students to like start off that research process. And then for pre-writing, I think in the slides I've included a template to this from our public library of a thesis statement practice activity that a teacher has published. So that's also a very popular use case, I think, maybe one of the most popular ones. And then, of course, like drafting with feedback, post-draft feedback, and grading in a way, and then also writing in different languages. Yeah, and then Nathan is asking, is there any visibility into the creation process, version history within the writing feedback? Yeah, to an extent, I think I can show this in, I have an example later on in the presentation. The link is like in the slides. Once I get there, I'll point it out for you. Yes, and speaking of that, we can move on to the writing features section in Flint. This should hopefully be a bit more easy to breeze through, but essentially for guidelines, kind of talked about the guidelines earlier about how to structure your initial prompt to Flint, but just some things that I want to like clear up. Yeah, AI takes guidelines very literally, so the more specific you can be with how you want Flint to give feedback, what sorts of things that you want Flint to like look out for, that will be very helpful. Yeah, and it won't always recognize when an example that it's giving is helpful or like too readily usable. So sometimes saying something like provide guidance indirectly without writing any examples students could use in their essay might be a good way to phrase it. And then specifically for like the role and the goal that Flint should be covering with students, yeah, it sometimes happily goes on tangents. So adding that role and goal is very helpful. And again, yeah, if you tell it to have a certain persona, like, you know, a responsible writing coach, then the output might be better if it has that like goal to imitate. Yeah. And then for rubrics also, I know like automated grading is also like a whole nother can of worms to open, but I do want to note that, you know, you can make the rubrics be like formative or summative. You can upload your own, as I kind of showed earlier, for Flint to like apply to the activity. And then, of course, you can always just like describe what you want Flint to tutor students about. And that can help a lot with how the feedback goes for the students. So within the rubric, if you're including more things like about analysis versus grammar versus something else, that can kind of change the way that the interactions in the activity. Yeah, and here's just like an example of what that might look like at like various different kinds of rubrics. Okay. Nice. Right, so here are the documents in Flint that I wanted to talk about. And Nathan asked about that piece with if there's a version history. So in this example here, let me collapse a couple things. Yeah, so this document, you know, it started off with like the initial kind of the initial draft that I wrote here. And actually, as a teacher, as you're going through the session again, you can go through and like look at the different stages of the document that the student sent to the AI. And another thing that students can do is actually highlight parts of their work, and that will highlight within the conversation. And then Flint can see what they've highlighted and like give feedback specifically on that point. Yeah, and then you can see like how students are like adding or editing their writing as the documents are sent to the AI. So kind of giving an idea into the process. I wouldn't say it's like a super specific version history with like typing evidence or anything, but I do think like it's demonstrating the different stages of the writing that the student is sharing with Flint. Yeah, and yes, another thing here is that here's where you can like print the final draft of whatever the student has written. And then you can also like export the writing so far to Google Drive if the student is supposed to like continue working on it outside of Flint. And then also like download as Microsoft Word or just copy the content as well. Any questions about documents in Flint? All right. I think I just have maybe two more things. Yeah, so luckily we kind of already also talked about this, but the text to speech and speech to text, of course, like helpful for asking students to explain, discuss, and reflect on their writing, sort of that more conversational aspect, and leaning into like the process and the thinking and even the metacognitive of writing and teaching writing. Yeah, text to speech and speech to text can be really helpful for this. And then if you are like having troubles with like students automatically like copying what Flint is giving them. You could also make it where Flint can only speak to them and they can't see the writing, and then they have to at least like listen well and interpret what Flint's saying there. And either way, I will say, like, even if you're only letting students speak to Flint, they can upload documents of their writing and images and still show that to Flint and in their discussion. Yeah. Okay, and then Miss Solokov is asking, can we upload documents created for students? I teach first grade and they are not on the same level. Could you expand a bit more on what you mean by that? Is it that you have like different rubrics for different students? Feel free to unmute and just speak also if you're.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So one of the problems that I have, for example, I have one of my first graders who cannot pronounce words properly. And Sparky constantly tells him that he's incorrect, that his answer is wrong. I'll give you an example. Today he didn't do Sparky, but yesterday, one of the answers was 38, and he kept saying 38. And they kept thinking that he was saying the number 30 and the letter A. And so he says, I don't want to play with Sparky anymore. And so they get very frustrated. I have another one where it recorded her answer, but it thought she was speaking French. And it sounded nothing like she initially said. She was sounding off the word fish. And she says, oh, congratulations. I see that you speak a different language. And she says, no, I only speak English, you know? So that's my problem with my kids, where I'm having to kind of create their own documents because Sparky doesn't seem to understand them.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if I have like a good answer or a good solution there, unfortunately. Maybe what you could do is prompt Sparky saying like, some of my students might not like speak super clearly, and then ask it to check with them if that is like, show them back to themselves what Sparky has understood, and then allow them to then like correct Sparky in a way. And then I think enabling both like the speaking and the typing might help, but yeah. I'm happy to work with you more one-on-one and like brainstorm this too if you want.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll test it out to see, let her know if she can kind of ask them. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you as well for trying it with such young students. Oh, sorry, my Google Home got activated. Hopefully you all didn't hear that. But yeah, okay, so the last one before we jump into the share out portion is that something new that we've added into Flint is this needs attention feature, which essentially highlights live which students might need your help based on how they're responding in their sessions. So I think this is like pretty helpful for in-person facilitation. And I'll show you where you can see this, but essentially on the overview page, as students are interacting with Flint, the needs attention sections will show up here, and then you click on any of these to be brought to the portion of the conversation where this is being highlighted. And then of course, like, you know, if you're in the room with the student, then you can go like find them at their desk or the table that they're at and help them out in person. So just something that we've added to kind of the ability for teachers to give feedback in a more timely fashion as well in person. Great. Yeah. Sad that Donovan had to leave, but he said that one question that he has is, what are we most excited about that is coming in the next 3 months? Ooh. Honestly, things change at Flint so quickly. It's hard to say what is coming in the next 3 months, but I think some of the things that are kind of top of mind for us are how we provide teachers with better analytics. So once that's more in the works, I can share more details about it. Yeah, but I think also in general, like our team is growing. So I'm also just excited to work with more people. We'll have more bandwidth to do more sessions like this, and also connect with more teachers. And yeah, I think that'll just like help Flint to become better much faster. But yes, okay. So, oh, I realized I was not sharing the slides again. Okay, there we go. So now we've arrived at the share out and feedback section. I have a video to show you all, but before the video, I did ask Emmanuel and Marie San. I'm not sure if she's here or on the same call as Emmanuel, but yeah, I asked them to share their experience with providing writing feedback to students. They're both part of our Flint Innovative Educator program, so they've shared with me before some of the things that they've done, and it's left me really inspired, at least. So I wanted to give them all the platform here today to be able to share it with you all as well. Yeah, feel free to share whenever you're ready, Emmanuel.
Hi, good morning for us because we're in China and it's 7 a.m. But yeah, I'm here with Marie, and we're excited because we've been using Flint for a year now. So we started piloting Flint here in my classes. I'm an INS teacher, so my experience is a little bit different compared to, for example, an English teacher, because we don't focus that much on grammar or spelling. However, Flint's been very useful because it gives them immediate feedback, and basically something you shared before, that feedback, the grades, how the students can upload their assignments into Flint. That's been very, very useful for us, and that's why we decided this year, and Marie was the one who decided to continue with Flint this year, because it's been really useful, and now teachers are using more and more Flint for the different subjects. So I'm gonna share my screen to show what we have done so far. Here, let's see. Oh, wait a second. Later, let me see if I can share. It's not letting me. Wait a second.
No worries.
Here, maybe this.
Yeah.
Okay. So this example here, well, let me see, because that was the. You see my no, let me see which one.
Yeah, I see the current events article section.
This one, yeah, I can see it now. So here, basically, in INS, what we did last year with we're an IB school, so you can see that the grades you can see on the left side of the screen are based from 1 to 8. So it's been very useful, because when you use either Sparky or in my case, I had some assignments prepared before using Flint. So we put the assignment into Flint, and Flint was perfect because it gave all the instructions for the students. Also included the criteria, so students can ask directly to Sparky if they want to get some feedback, written feedback, but also the grades as well. That's one way. The other one is that they can click on submit. They will get, after 1-2 minutes, they will get a feedback, as you have mentioned before. So what I like the most is that they have, for example, the strengths, the area of improvement, and I know you mentioned before that it's one of the complaints from other teachers, but for us, at least for me, my personal experience, it's been amazing. The strengths and the areas of improvement, because they can connect what they are doing and their assignments with the things they need to improve, and most of them, they always want to get the top score, like 7 or 8. And sometimes we as teachers, we struggle, like saying, like, yeah, maybe this is not a 7 or an 8, it's more like a 4 or 6, and they say, like, but why we want a 7 or an 8? Like those kind of conversations. With Flint is right there. So basically, they read it as like, yeah, if you want like a 7 or an 8, you need to follow this feedback. Obviously, it's not perfect, and we always need to double check, and we need to help them. But it's been really useful, because some of them, what they do is insert or upload the assignment, or they talk to Sparky, and they keep talking to the AI in this case, to continue answering the questions or guide them through it. For some reason, I cannot, I mean, when I'm moving my screen, you cannot see it, but let me see if I can fix it. Share, okay, this one, let's see if I can. Oh, no, okay, now it's better. So for example, this assignment, this student here, they used, for example, we were analyzing some current events, they were reviewing articles, this student inserted or copy and pasted the link, and then she used the essay document here with all the instructions that Flint created by using my template to write all the information. So at the end, she asked for feedback, and that's why she got like 5 or 6, and then Flint explained why. It was really useful because if you notice here, she got a 5 or 6 initially. It says somewhere it said 5 or 6 here, 5 or 6, and then later she kept improving her assignment until she got the 7 or 8. So now it's 6 and 7. Then she kept improving, and at the end, she got more like a 7 and 8. So that's why it was being very useful for us and humanities teachers, because it's been helping the students to progress. And also when we're in class, it's been very useful because if you have 15, 20 students, maybe you cannot give them immediate feedback to all of them. Maybe sometimes you want to focus to some students who have specific needs. And that's the first thing that we always tell them, like, if you have questions, please go to Flint, insert the assignment or finish the assignment right there, and then we can address the specific questions, because sometimes they are the same questions, like, I'm not getting a 7 and 8, and maybe they don't have the citation. And those kind of things are very basic to address, and if they follow the instructions, they will know how easy it is. So this one of the assignments we had. Also, we had for economics, we had global economics data analysis project. So most of them were working on notes or pages, and what we asked them was to upload the assignment and ask directly Flint for feedback. So some of them submitted the assignment, but some of them just basically asked for feedback. That's another way. I mean, you don't have to go through all the chat, because we have heard, especially from the lower kids, that they don't like that much going like step by step. I don't know why they just want all the instructions and writing everything on pages and then putting into Flint. So here, that's what they did. They included all the information they have, and here is the feedback. So as I said before, it helps them, especially with the writing. It helps them like focusing on the structure, help them in having introduction, a body, a conclusion, giving them all the structure. And as you said before here also in this session, if you want to focus also on grammar and spelling, they can do that too. However, it's not our main topic in this class. But yep, it's been very useful so far. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, all good. I think you might still be sharing the old tab. Just.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
Morning. So now you can see that exactly. So yeah, sorry, I'm go over this quickly. So you have here, thank you. So you have this, so they all the assignments, as I said before, and it says give my grade. And that's something very useful too, because they don't just got the grade, they got the feedback. And they are so used to getting like, yeah, you get this grade, and they don't care about the feedback. But they've been focusing a little bit more on the feedback and knowing how to improve, or knowing if they're okay with that grade, because we have gotten that those comments too. They say, yeah, I'm okay with a 4. Okay, I'll just submit the assignment, and that's perfectly fine too. So yeah, that's why it's been very useful for us so far. And I highly recommend to use these features for any kind of subjects when you are writing or you're doing essays, even if you're not an English teacher. That helps them a lot. And we're being limiting a little bit, for example, the other languages feature, because we really want to encourage them to use English. But when we tried it last year with Marie, we left it open. And it was also useful for our Chinese students and Spanish-speaking students too. And they also liked it. So the problem is that since it was that good, they got used and they were only typing in Spanish or in Chinese. And then it's like, okay, I'll translate this under. And that wasn't our main goal. So yeah, I have to use the whole time just presenting my feedback or my session. But yeah, that's something you can keep in mind if you wanna improve the writing in our students, to keep them a little more motivated and more like goal oriented, or some students who are very grades oriented.
For sure, for sure. Before Nathan asks this question, I think I remember a while back where Flint could kind of be tricked into like giving A pluses also. So there were some students who discovered this, and like even though that wasn't explicitly in the grading rubric, they were trying really, really hard to get an A plus, and they would ask like again and again and again, like what is like another thing I can improve? I really want the plus, even though it didn't actually mean anything for their actual grade. So that was actually really cool to see like them get really fired up about that. But really quickly before Nathan asks a question, Chris was asking in the chat, sometimes the chat or activity gets very long, and Flint says like, I think the message that says like, Flint is reaching its context window, and so it might not remember earlier stuff in the chat. And he's asking, like, is there a certain limit to how much writing can be uploaded or how many times students can return before the session starts to degrade? And honestly, it kind of depends, Chris, just on like the complexity of the writing that students are submitting or like how long the session has been. But I do think if you start seeing this and like your students are concerned about this, you can actually ask Flint to summarize the conversation so far into a document, and then they can copy that document and then bring it into a new chat so that that sort of context is available to them, but it's like a new fresh slate for them to start off of. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, so that looks really great, Emmanuel. I had one teacher who was trying to do something similar, and one of the things that they were having some challenges with is just getting it to follow their rubric. So I wonder if I could just get your feedback on what are the key things that you do to kind of get it to follow the rubric closely for you, and kind of, yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for your question. And we struggled with that at the beginning too, because it was giving grades from 0 to or 1 to 100, and that's not how we wanted the scores. But what we figured out is that we need to be very, very specific. So before, what I do is I work on the task first, and then I put it into Flint. So there are two ways. Other teachers, they go straight into Sparky and they started saying all the instructions and then copy. For example, we use Managepad. We copy and paste the criteria in Sparky. But wait, that's a bell. And what I do is I have all the document prepared first, everything, including the instructions, the criteria, everything ready, and then I put it into Flint, and Flint works really well with it. And I don't have to do anything else, to be honest. I just review that the session is, that the AI is understanding what we're looking for. But so far, I haven't had any single activity that they or Flint didn't follow the criteria we had. But that's the most important thing, to be very specific with the criteria, and that has to be there. If you say like, yeah, I'm using criterion C of NYP5 or IB, it might get complicated for the AI, because I mean, it might fail as an AI, as any other AI. But if you have the document ready, it's gonna be very easy, at least from my experience.
Oh, that's so
Great,
interesting.
thank you.
Yeah, I think what Emmanuel is describing is kind of also similar along the lines to like Chris's question. I think Nathan, like maybe your teachers are kind of running into the issue where if you put in a lot of information and inputs into AI, it kind of looks at like a summary of all of it. It's like it kind of struggles with like figuring out what exactly it should be prioritizing. So something that I've been suggesting to teachers, especially if they're designing more complex activities, is to start off in a chat in Flint actually, and like use that to like be like the brainstorming area, talk to it about like, you know, the things that you want to create in this activity, the guidelines that you want to input into it, and then in the chat ask it to generate a document with all of the settings. Because Flint chats know about Flint activities, and so it can like actually make a document that has all of the settings necessary for that activity. And then similar to what Emmanuel is doing, where he's just uploading the information that is needed for that activity, you can then also just upload the document that it creates at the end of that brainstorming chat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Great, awesome.
And also, sorry, I just wanted to share, for example, how a PDF looks like. And let me just share this stuff. So this one, another activity we did with NYP4s, we're studying a little bit of psychology. And I don't want to go over like all the information because that's not the most important thing for right now. But it's this part, like the task-specific clarification. So with this, Flint will work really well. So if Flint has this, use the chat as Lulu mentioned before. If you have that in the chat, or if you have as a PDF, it will understand what we have in the document, and then it will put it into an activity. And as I said before, so far we haven't had any complaint from teachers or from my department, or my hasn't said anything yet about this activity. So that's what I would recommend you, having the PDF, having instructions very clearly, and then based on that, Flint will help you a lot and your teachers too.
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel. That's a very clear example. So yeah, very helpful. Thank you. Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions for Emmanuel? Awesome. Thank you so much again for sharing. I will bring us back to my share screen. So there was another teacher that I asked to share out, Amanda, who is also from school in Asia. I won't play through her whole video right now, simply because we might not have time. So it's included in the slides that you all will get after this session in case you want to watch through the whole thing. But I did pull out some of the important things that she said. But the context is that she actually had students. Ooh, let me share this tab so we can see a visual of it. She had lower school students writing in Chinese, and she had them actually practice or ask Flint for feedback on their writing. And instead of like having them take pictures or like type it into Flint, they would just read aloud the letter that they were writing to Flint and then get feedback in that way. So then, yeah, that was like kind of the context of how they did it. And here's the prompting that I translated from Amanda's prompt in Mandarin. But essentially, I thought it was really good how she, of course, like specified like the age of the students, what they're doing here, and also the specific goals that Flint should have as it's interacting with them, like enriching the content, expanding vocabulary, improving their sentences, teaching simple rhetorical techniques, and helping children self-check. I thought that one was really cool too. And also she added like important principles, keeping the speech brief, presenting only one specific improvement at a time. Yeah, a lot of really good ones there also for lower school teachers. Yeah, so that was really cool. And in her video here, she shared some of like the examples. I'm not sure if everyone here can read Mandarin, so I won't share it here right now, but I think, yeah, her video is really great. Highly encourage you all to watch it. She also talked about some of the like pitfalls that happened as they were trying it out. Like, I think there were some like connectivity issues, unfortunately, which hopefully have been resolved on our end. But I think one of the really important questions that they were asking at the end there is like, are the students really understanding what they're putting down? And I think that's still like an open question for them. It kind of connects back to the like conversation that we were having at the very beginning about the ice-breaking news and the article from that English teacher. But yeah, I think that we're seeing a lot of examples here of people very intentionally using AI for writing feedback and using it to more so illuminate this process and giving students feedback on very specific things about like why they're writing something this way and like how they're structuring their writing. So hopefully this has been a session that has, you know, given you some inspiration and given you some things to think about and chew on, at least, about how AI should be implemented into teaching writing. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, I'll go ahead and wrap up the session. I know we're already like a minute over time, but I can stay on a little bit afterwards in case anyone has additional questions. But here's kind of the calendar for upcoming sessions. It's like kind of loose on whether or not those dates are the actual dates, but it should be like within that week. Yeah, and so if there's any sessions that you want to see or any of these sessions that you want to like share your thoughts at, please let me know. Still a bit flexible on what this calendar actually looks like. But yeah, after this session is done, I'll post the recording on our website, but of course everyone here will get the direct link in their email. And yeah, I'll leave you all with some of these QR codes. If you're here, you're probably already subscribed to the Campfire calendar, but that's where you can get all of the notifications about upcoming sessions. We do have a new Instagram, which most of our social media is like directed towards school leaders, but the Instagram, the goal is to direct towards teachers specifically. So that could be a great place to learn more about new things coming in Flint. And then we have the Flint Community, which is like a forum Q&A space for teachers by teachers. So if you're like wanting to run any ideas by other teachers or like kind of see what other people are doing with Flint, that's also a great place to check out.